Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about absolute value inequalities. So the thing that you have to remember is it's pretty much like absolute value and inequalities mushed together. So those two ideas. The idea of standing in two places, moving the direction, the distance from zero. Anyways, so this is how you do it. When the absolute value is by itself, this is one of the inequalities. So you're going to write it as you read it. And when I write it and I split it, I don't have the absolute value lines. Then you write it again, but you want the opposite symbol and the opposite sign. And then you're going to graph it and write the interval notation. Okay, so I have open dots at 8 and -8. And then it's either going to be an in together, which is an and, or apart, which is an or. You're not going to have a mix, just like before, okay? So this one says that k is greater than 8, so if that one's out, the other one is probably out, and let's see, k is less than -8, so yeah. So my interval notation to the left forever and ever means -infinity, then I get to -8. There's nothing filled in, so I have parentheses, union, parenthesis, because it's open, 8. To the right forever means +infinity. And then we're done. Okay, so again, on number 2, we are going to write it as we read it. So m is less than or equal to 6, and then we write it again, but we flip the symbol, flip the sign. Okay, now we have closed dots for these guys. It's -6 and 6. And then for this one, this +6, this is my biggest. So I'm going to shade in, and I'm going to shade in on the other side. For my interval notation, I have no infinities, so don't put them. My important numbers are -6 to 6 in order from least to greatest. They're filled in, so they have brackets. So we'll do another one. Let's do number 5. Give us some room. On number 5, you write it as you read it. Then write it again, but you flip the symbol, flip the sign. So I have a closed dot at -7 and a closed dot at 7. And then I want my number to be less than 7. So 7 is the biggest, so that means we're going to shade in between. Then we write our interval notation. I have no infinities, so my first important number is -7. It's filled in, so it gets a bracket. My next important number is +7. Again, it's filled in, so it gets a bracket. Okay, so when the absolute value is by itself, you rewrite it, write it again, flip the symbol, flip the sign. So that brings us to our worksheet. So for our worksheet today, we have some 1-steps, and we have to just remember our inequality rules. If you multiply or divide each side by a negative, you have to flip. So like on number 3, there is this -7 that's out in front. So our absolute value is not by itself, so we're going to divide each side by -7. When we divide each side by a negative, because it's an inequality, we have to flip our symbol. So now we have the absolute value of k is greater than 10. Since the absolute value is by itself, we rewrite it. As we read it, we write it again, we flip the symbol, flip the sign. Then we're going to draw our graph. We put our numbers on our graph, going from least to greatest. Since I have no line, they're open. And I want my k to be bigger than 10. So bigger than 10 is over on the right, which means I also will shade on the left. To the left forever and ever is -infinity. My first important number is -10. There's nothing filled in, so I have parentheses for everything. Union, parentheses, 10, infinity, parenthesis. Let's do another one. Number 2. On this guy, when I get the absolute value by itself, I'm going to do the opposite of +10, so I'm going to subtract 10 on each side. Now I have the absolute value of v is less than or equal to 8. Notice I didn't flip my symbol because I only subtracted by a negative. I didn't multiply. Okay, rewrite. V is less than or equal to 8. Write it again, but flip the symbol, flip the sign, and then we're going to graph. Again, it's always least to greatest. Since they are lines, I have to fill in my bubbles. Okay, and then I just pick one. My v is less than 8, so my 8 is the biggest, so less than 8 is in between. I write my interval notation. There are no infinities. My first important number is -8. My next important number is +8, and since they're both filled in, they both get brackets. Let's look at okay, number 9. Just a reminder, since my absolute value is getting divided by 2, we have to multiply each side by 2. So now the absolute value is all by itself, and since I did not multiply or divide each side by a negative, my sign stays, or my symbol stays, and 3 times 2 is 6. I write it as I read it, I write it again, but I flip my symbol, flip my sign. I'm going to graph smallest number to the largest number, open, open. Okay, with my 6, I want the 6 to be the biggest, so I'm going to shade to the left, which means I'm shading in between. There's no infinities shaded. My first important number is -6. Since it's not filled in, it gets a parenthesis. My next important number is +6, and since it's not filled in, it gets a parenthesis as well. So this is my interval notation. On the front side, these all have numbers on the outside and nothing on the inside of your absolute value. On the back side, I just have one step inside. So let's look at number 14. The absolute value is all by itself. So we write it as we read it. P minus 9 is greater than 5. We write it again. P minus 9. Flip the symbol. Flip the sign. We're going to add 9 to each side. These go away. P is greater than 14, and P is less than 4. So these guys don't have opposite numbers, so be very careful. The smallest number always goes first, and then the larger number. They don't have lines, so they're both open. My 14 is not my biggest. The P is the biggest, so it's going to go on the outside of each. To the left forever and ever means negative infinity. My important number is 4, and they have parentheses because there's nothing filled in. Union, parentheses, 14 to positive infinity. On number 18, the absolute value is already by itself, so you write it as you read it. N over 2 is greater than 3. Then you write it again, you flip the symbol, flip the sign. In order to get the n by itself, we're going to multiply everything by 2. Those 2's cancel, leaving n is greater than 6, and n is less than -6. Then we write our interval notation with our number going from least to greatest. Open, open. My 6 is not my biggest, my n is, so we're going to shade out. To the left forever and ever is negative infinity, which always goes first. Then -6, parentheses because nothing's filled in. Union, parenthesis, 6, infinity, parenthesis. Alright guys, if you have any questions, let your teacher know. Hope you have a great day. Bye!